Callie Finn, happy WNBA Monday. The playoff picture in the WNBA is getting very interesting. That's all I'll have to say. We came out of the All-Star break, it's the second half of the season, and there have been some shifts and like some teams who look like they were definitely going to be playoff teams. Seattle Storm no longer looking like they're definitely going to make the playoffs, right? There's just a lot happening, Callie. And so I'm just going to like run through some teams and I want to get your take. So I'm going to start with actually the Atlanta Dream because Atlanta right now has a chance to be the number 2 seed, Callie. And like coming into the season, I think with Atlanta, you know, people were not sure. They wanted to see this team. They've been a little inconsistent at times during this season. They were having trouble like executing games. And so coming out of the break, even before the All-Star break started, I was a little concerned about Atlanta because they were going on this crazy stretch for basically most of July where they were playing almost all of their games on the road, Callie. And then Ryan Howard got injured. She wasn't in the All-Star game because she had an injury, so they were going to be playing without Ryan Howard. She's like arguably their best defensive player, right? And still, they kept rolling, Callie. Right now, the Atlanta Dream are tied for second. They have the same exact record with the New York Liberty. The only reason that they don't have the second spot is because New York has won 2 of their matchups and Atlanta has only won 1. But Atlanta does see New York one more time this season in Atlanta. And they have a chance to at least prevent that like head-to-head tiebreaker. So one, Callie, I want to know, do you think Atlanta will finish as the second overall seed? Yes, I'm asking you to make some predictions. And just like, do you consider them a legitimate contender, like on the same level as we talk about the Liberty and also the Minnesota Lynx?
Yeah, I think that we talked about this a little bit earlier, but the Liberty scheduling kind of puts the Dream in an ideal situation because as we're kind of like doing all this grappling for playoff position, the Liberty are kind of in a tough spot. Like in the previous segment, we talked about they've got a back-to-back coming up, then they got to go up against the Lynx, which are at the top of the league twice in a row, all these different things that the Liberty are dealing with, whereas like the Dream don't necessarily have that issue. I think when you look at their schedule, however, I think it's more of like a matchup thing beyond like, getting that number 2. Like let's say they do get the number 2 spot. I think the way that they match up with other teams compared to the way that the Liberty match up to other teams is different. Like I look at,
For sure.
for example, like the Aces handily beat the Atlanta Dream. Like it wasn't even really that big of a deal like this season. And like I do think that it's just like a matchup thing, whereas like Atlanta can give other probably what some people would argue more competitive teams
Yeah.
more of a run for their money. So I just think that that's like what stands out to me about the Dream. But 100%, you asked me to make a prediction. I think that they could, get that number 2 spot just because of the way the scheduling is kind of played out for the second half of this season.
Yeah, I mean, one, if they get the number 2, that's going to give them home court basically. If they were to try to go all the way to the finals, that would be, and if it was the Lynx on the other side, they would have home court basically up until the finals. So that could be, let's say they end up 2 and the Liberty end up 3. That could be a big deal because if they see each other in the semis, they would have home court. And I think if they're going to beat the Liberty, they probably need home court. I know the Liberty are very capable of winning on the road, but I'm just saying I think that they would definitely need that. And I agree with you, like on the matchup part, man. Like I'm sure, I think Phoenix will turn it around, but they've been a little wonky lately. They have not beaten the Dream at all this year, so I don't know that they would want to see them. And then you brought up like the Aces. That's a good point. I just think the Aces in general could present interesting. I don't think as shaky as the Aces have been this year, Callie, I don't think anybody wants to see Asia Wilson in the first round. Like, I just think she's that great that, like, even if you can beat them, I don't think as a first-round opponent, like, you want to see them, which is, I think, actually good that the Aces are moving up the standings. Because could you imagine, like, if you're, like, depending on where you land up, if you're, like, you worked hard to get, like, this good place and then you're seeing, like, the Aces in the first round, like, that's annoying.
I mean, I think that's true for all but the top 2 teams in the league. Like the Liberty I'm sure they don't feel that way because they have consistently beat the Aces game after game. So have the Lynx. So, but I mean, I think, yeah, if you look at the rest of the league, I'm sure they feel that way. They don't want to see Asia and they don't want to see the Aces. But that's the Aces' biggest issue is like, you cannot beat the Liberty. You cannot beat the Lynx in the past 6 or 7 games that you played them over the last 2 seasons.
For
So
sure.
that's like a
I
huge
still think they match up
playoff.
better with the Liberty, though, than the Lynx. I think that they can win a game against the Liberty, even if they don't come as frequently. I'm not convinced that they can win a game against the Lynx. But anyway, so I think it's going to come down to that game where Atlanta plays New York. I think if they win that game, I think Atlanta takes the 2 seed. So I hedged a little bit with my prediction, but they need to go for it. They need to get that 2 seed. They really do. Okay. So the Atlanta Storm have won. I'm sorry, the Atlanta Storm. Goodness. The Atlanta Dream, they have won their last 5. They're on a 5-game win streak. The Seattle Storm, on the other hand, have lost their last 5.
4-game losing streak. Oh, 5 straight. I thought it was a 4-game losing streak.
No,
it's 5.
I'm pretty
when did
sure
it become 5?
Last night, I think. Yeah.
That's
I'm pretty
bad.
sure. Yeah, they lost. I'm good. You're making me second guess myself here, Callie. But I think,
No, you're probably right. I'm just saying, like you blink and it's like
yeah,
you blink
one.
and
They lost to the
nosediving.
Sparks twice. Yeah, they lost to the Sparks twice.
Wow.
The Fever, the Lynx, and the Aces. So they have now lost 5. Okay. Since the break, they've lost 7 of their last 9 games. And I think, Callie, one of those wins was like against the Connecticut Sun. Actually, both of them. They're two. No. They lost once to the Sun. So I don't even know who the other one is. I'd have to go back and look. But like the Sun, the team with the worst record in the league, that's who the Storm managed to beat. I mean, look, some people are speculating that Skylar Diggins may be hurt. They're going to be dealing with some integration issues, just, integrating Brittany Sykes into the lineup. She did have a much better game yesterday, but like, they are just struggling right now. And Callie, the most interesting thing to me, these losses, right? I'm going to they're losing by like a handful of points, Callie, okay? They lost to the Sparks 108-106. That was that double overtime. You remember that game? That was sort of like a thriller, right? Maybe the best game of the season. They lost to the Fever 78-74. 4 points there. They lost to the Lynx 91-87. Another 4 points there. They lose to the Aces 90-86. 4 points there. And then they lose yesterday. Dearica Hamby gets the like basically a game winner on them 94-91. 3 points. They're losing all of these very close games, like at the very end of the game in crunch time. Like they're just not executing. But it is very similar to what we saw from them in the second half of last season.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's so interesting to me is like even having covered that Aces game, it almost, I mean, I never want to like single anybody out, so I'm not trying to do that. But it felt like a kind of like a coaching drop off towards the end where it was like it was winnable. You know what I mean? Like they pulled ahead and all these different things and then just weren't able to like hold on to that win. And so I think that there are a few things that are happening here. Like they obviously, like you said, against the Aces, Skylar Diggins didn't score a single point. That was just on Friday. And then afterwards, like they kind of hesitated to address whether or not she's hurt. You had Noelle Quinn, the head coach, kind of just say, we're going to get her right. She's going to get herself right. But if she doesn't, that's going to be a huge, it's going to make a huge impact. So I think, you have somebody like Dominique Malonga who like explodes for a career high. I think it was like 20 something points against the Aces. And so those are things that you can look at and kind of get encouragement from. I think even like with the, acquiring Brittany Sykes, like I think it's only just been like 2 games. Yeah, 2 games. She had a solid game against the Aces, solid game against the Sparks. Like maybe that's all it takes. But I think also when you do kind of like takes away somebody's minutes, now you have Erica Wheeler who's going to like have to adjust to a new role, all these different things. You know what I mean? I think that's like maybe gonna be interesting to watch with the Storm, which were already kind of like ebbing and flowing offensively already before the changes, before the Skylar Diggins, maybe not injury, whatever's going on with that. That was already an issue. So I think now things are kind of compounding for them.
Yeah.
And that's why we're looking at this like feels like out of nowhere 5-game losing streak.
Yeah. I mean, Not out of nowhere to me, because I've kind of people came for me at the beginning of the year. I forget where I had Seattle ranked, but I don't know, it might have been like 6 or something like that, or 5, whatever. And people are like, and like, look, the Jordan Horston injury was a big thing. Like, I think people overlooked it. And then Samuelson, they also lost her. Like, it's not, they have older stars and they are being taxed, And so, like, Erica Wheeler, she was coming off the bench, like, initially to start the season. So, I think she'll adjust okay, but I think your points about adjustments are valid in that, like, they have to now adjust to integrating Brittany Sykes, who takes a lot of shots. Like, she's a high, like,
oh yeah.
She's not always the most efficient. And, like, look, when you have a hyper efficient star like, Nneka next to her, maybe it doesn't matter. But so you have to integrate her, but you're also in the middle of, like, this losing streak. So they got a lot going on, and they need to turn it around quickly, because right now, are they 8th? Have they dropped to 8th in the standings? I believe so. And so, look, I do think the Storm are going to make it, but, like, they do not want to be seeing the Minnesota Lynx in the first round. Like that, they need to try to get out of that spot, and they still can. So they need to do something, because, like, the team that is also coming are the Los Angeles Sparks. And, I before at one point would not have had the Sparks making the postseason, but with the Washington Mystics trading Brittany Sykes, with the Valkyries losing KT, Kayla Thornton, I just think that I think Las Vegas. I think the Los Angeles Sparks will be able to take them. And even though, like, the Sparks could have overtaken the Valkyries in the standings the other night when they played them, they lost, and that is important because now the Valkyries hold the head-to-head tiebreaker over them. But I just think the rate right now at which the Sparks are winning, they are going to win more games, than the other teams right below them, which is the Mystics, and then the teams right above them, which is Seattle right now, is just right above them. The Sparks are right behind them. And then you have the Valkyries as well. And I do think the Valkyries will lose more games. So I think the Sparks are going to get in, Callie.
Yeah, I think what's so interesting, so I think the Storm are actually 7th in the league standings. But
Okay.
what's interesting is, like, if you look at a lot of, like, projections, like ESPN has a really good, like, playoff projector where they,
Where
like,
are you seeing them as 7th? Because I'm seeing them as 8th. They're 16 and 16. So they're 500.
They're 16.
Yeah, and the Valkyries are, both the Valkyries and Seattle are both 500 right now, but the Valkyries are 15 and 15 and Seattle 16 and 16. So they're 8th.
I'm just looking at the league standings.
Where?
Like,
I'm on looking at, well, it doesn't matter. I'm looking at on the app right now, and I'm seeing the Seattle is 8th. They fall in the 8th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe the one I'm looking at is not updated.
Okay.
But yeah, it has the record 16-16, but it has them at 7th, like over the Valkyries, which are 15 and 15.
Okay.
So
well,
yeah,
either way,
I don't know, but
they're at the bottom.
What I was going to say though, what's interesting about kind of like a lot of these projections is that the Storm making the playoffs is kind of where it stops being like a high likelihood. It's like right now, like it's like an 87.7% chance. Like, yes, they're going to make the playoffs. You know what I'm saying? But then everything else is less than 50%. Like it's going to be a really interesting just road ahead. Like the Valkyries, they absolutely could make the playoffs, but like you said, so could the Sparks. You know what I mean? Like those are kind of like the two teams where it gets really interesting, and then it's just like a big drop after that. Like you have obviously the Mystics and whatever, and that's kind of where the conversation ends. But I do think that like the Sparks could be a really interesting team, especially because they've been kind of like red hot. I think they've won like 7 of their last 8 or something like that. So or no, maybe less than that after that loss. But
yeah, it's up there.
But it's up there. Like they've got some good momentum going. So I think that it's just going to be interesting to see how this plays out.
Well, we're going to watch and see how it plays out and continue to talk about it. Callie, thanks for joining me. You guys, make sure you're tuned into the WNBA on NBC and subscribe to our new YouTube channel so you can get all things WNBA. Callie, this has been fun. I cannot wait for the playoffs.